A human soldier's first night with his alien bride sparked the most forbidden love ever told. The transport ship hummed through the darkness of space, carrying its cargo of nervous human soldiers toward a destiny none of them had imagined when they first enlisted. Lieutenant Jake Morrison sat in the cramped passenger bay, staring at the datapad in his hands that displayed the image of his assigned bride. She was beautiful in a way that made his breath catch, even through the digital screen. Her skin shimmered with a faint silver luminescence like moonlight on water, and her eyes were large and deep violet with flecks of gold that seemed to swirl in their depths. Her name was Lyria, and she came from the planet Zarath, a world that had allied with Earth against the growing threat of the Dominion Empire. The arranged marriage program was supposed to seal the alliance between their worlds, but Jake felt like he was walking toward his execution rather than his wedding. He had never wanted, never asked to be paired with an alien woman, no matter how desperate the war effort had become. When the ship finally docked at the orbital station above Zarath, Jake gathered his few belongings and followed the other soldiers through the sterile corridors toward the meeting hall. His hands were sweating and his heart pounded so hard he thought everyone around him could hear it. The hall was vast and filled with both humans and Zarathians. The aliens moved with a grace that seemed almost liquid, their bodies taller and more slender than humans with an elegance that made Jake feel clumsy and crude. He spotted Lyria standing near the far wall surrounded by other Zarathian women, and when their eyes met across the crowded room, something electric passed between them. The ceremony was brief and efficient, translated through devices that made the alien words sound mechanical and lifeless. Jake spoke his vows, feeling like he was reciting lines from a script he had never read before. When it was done, they were declared bonded and the crowd dispersed, leaving the new couples to face each other alone. Lyria approached him slowly, her movements careful as if she was afraid of startling him. She was even more beautiful up close, and Jake found himself unable to look away from those incredible eyes. "I know this is not what you wanted," she said softly, her voice like music, even through the translator device on her collar. "I did not choose this either, but perhaps we can make the best of what we have been given." Jake nodded, not trusting his voice. They were given quarters in the residential section of the station, a small apartment that would be their home until the war was over or until they were both dead. The thought hung between them, unspoken but heavy. That first night was awkward and tense. Jake kept to one side of the small living space, while Lyria moved around the kitchen area, preparing something that smelled strange, but not unpleasant. He watched her work, noticing the way her silver skin caught the light and how her long fingers moved with such precision. "You do not have to be afraid of me," she said without turning around. "I will not harm you, am not afraid." Jake lied, but even he could hear the uncertainty in his voice. Lyria turned to face him and smiled. It was a sad smile that made Jake's chest tighten. "We are both afraid," she said. "Then let us be afraid together." They ate in silence, but it was a more comfortable silence than before. After the meal, Lyria showed him how the sleeping quarters worked. The bed was larger than standard military issue, designed to accommodate Zarathian heights. Jake stared at it, feeling his face grow hot. "I can sleep on the floor," he offered quickly. Lyria looked at him with those swirling violet eyes. "You are my husband now," she said gently. "Whether either of us wanted this or not, we must learn to exist together. That means sharing the space we have been given." Jake nodded, and they prepared for sleep in awkward silence. When he finally lay down on one side of the bed, Lyria settled on the other, keeping a careful distance between them. The lights dimmed automatically and darkness filled the room. He could hear her breathing, soft and steady in the darkness. After a long while, he heard her voice, barely a whisper. "Are you awake?" "Yes," Jake replied. "Tell me about Earth," she asked. "I have seen images, but I want to know what it is like to be there." Jake thought for a moment, then began to talk. He told her about the forests. He had hiked as a child, about the smell of rain on hot pavement and the sound of waves crashing on beaches. He talked about his mother, who worked as a teacher, and his younger sister, who wanted to be an engineer. He talked until his voice grew hoarse, and somewhere in the middle of describing his hometown, he realized Lyria had moved closer. She was lying on her side, facing him, her head propped on one hand, listening with complete attention. When he finished, she smiled again. But this time it reached her eyes. "Your world sounds beautiful," she said. "I hope I will see it someday." "Tell me about Zarath," Jake said. Surprising himself, Lyria's face lit up and she began to speak. She told him about the crystal forests where the trees grew in spirals toward the sky and sang in the wind. She described the twin moons that rose every night, painting the land in shades of silver and blue. She talked about her family, her 3 siblings and her parents who worked as mediators in the planetary council. As she spoke, Jake found himself drawn into her words. He watched her face animate with passion and love for her home, and something shifted inside his chest. The fear and resentment that had been sitting there like a stone began to crack. "I am sorry you had to leave," all that Jake said quietly. Lyria reached out slowly, giving him time to pull away, and placed her hand over his. Her skin was warm and smooth, not cold like he had feared. "I am sorry you had to leave your home too," she said. "But perhaps we can build something new together. Something that belongs to both of us." Jake looked down at her hand on his and then up into those incredible eyes. In them, he saw not an alien, not a stranger forced upon him by politics and war, but a person, someone who was just as scared and alone as he was, someone who had sacrificed everything for a cause bigger than herself. He turned his hand over and laced his fingers through hers. They were different, her fingers longer and more delicate, but they fit together, better than he expected. Lyria moved closer until her head rested against his shoulder, and Jake found himself wrapping his arm around her. She was warm and solid and real, and for the first time since boarding the transport ship, he felt something other than dread. They lay like that in the darkness, neither speaking but both finding comfort in the presence of the other. Jake could feel her heartbeat against his side, faster than a human's, but steady and strong. He realized that despite everything, despite the fear and the strangeness and the impossible situation they had been thrown into, he did not want to be anywhere else in that moment. "Tell me more about the crystal forests," he whispered. Lyria smiled against his shoulder and began to speak, her voice soft and musical in the darkness. Jake listened, holding her close and feeling the last of his resistance crumble away. He had been so certain this arrangement would be a prison, but lying here with this incredible woman in his arms, he began to wonder if it might be something else entirely. She told him about the festivals on Zarath, where people would dance under the twin moons and the air would be filled with bioluminescent insects that looked like living stars. She described the taste of their native fruits and the sound of the morning chorus when thousands of crystal birds would sing at dawn. When she finally fell silent, Jake realized she was waiting for him to say something. He took a breath and spoke from his heart. Instead of his fear, "I want to see all of that," he said. "I want you to show me your world." Lyria lifted her head to look at him, and in her eyes he saw hope and something else, something that made his breath catch. "And I want to see yours," she said. Jake leaned forward slowly, giving her every chance to pull away, but she did not. When their lips met, it was gentle and tentative, an exploration rather than a conquest. Her lips were softer than he expected, and she tasted like the strange fruit she had served at dinner. When they parted, they stayed close, their foreheads touching and their breath mingling in the small space between them. "This is forbidden," Jake whispered. "The Alliance might accept our marriage, but they would never accept us truly. Loving each other, then let it be forbidden." Lyria replied, her voice fierce. "Let them call it wrong or impossible, I do not care. I choose you, Jake Morrison. I choose this." Jake felt something break open inside him, all the loneliness and fear and anger he had carried for so long spilling out and being replaced by something warm and bright and terrifying in its intensity. "I choose you too," he said, and meant it with every fiber of his being. They held each other in the darkness of their small quarters, aboard the station, while outside the stars wheeled in their ancient dance and the war continued its bloody march across the galaxy. But in that moment, none of it mattered. There was only the two of them, two souls from different worlds finding something precious and forbidden and utterly right in each other's arms. The forbidden love between a human soldier and his alien bride had begun, and nothing in the universe would be able to stop it.